Before the end of this video, you would be able to know exactly all the muscles in the upper limb. So for this our discussion today, we are dealing with the muscles of the upper extremities. I'm going to group the muscles of the upper extremity into different regions. So we'll start with the thoracoappendicular region. That's the thorax, and the appendicular, that's thorax towards the upper extremities. Then we'll move to the posterior side of this right hand of the model, and then we deal with the scapulohumeral muscles. Those are the muscles that links the scapula and the humerus, and it also contains the muscles that move the humerus in relation to the scapula. Then the next region that we will be looking at is the arm, both the anterior compartment as well as the posterior compartment. The next region that we will be considering is the forearm. Okay, the forearm, and the forearm has a lot of muscles in it, over 20 muscles right here, tightly arranged and organized together. And based on the complexity of this arrangement, the forearm can best be understood by dividing this muscle and grouping them systematically. Okay, so you can group them anteriorly and then posteriorly. There are 3 layers of muscles that are arranged in the anterior aspect of the forearm. Okay, so the superficial layer, that's superficial anterior, then there is intermediate anterior, and then there's deep anterior. Okay, so the intermediate anterior just have only one muscle, while the posterior aspect of the forearm is divided into 2 layers. So superficial posterior as well as the deep posterior muscles. We move to the thenar muscles. Okay, that's the muscle behind or below the thumb, as well as the hypothenar muscle, that is the muscle below the little finger. Okay, don't worry, you are going to learn new words, and I'm going to explain how these words are derived. That's the best way to learn anatomy, since the early anatomists are Grecians, that's people from Greek. So the derivative of these names are directly linked to Greek words. Start with the first compartment or the first region, and that is the thoracoappendicular muscles. The first muscle we will consider is the pectoralis major muscle. Okay, the pectoralis major muscle. Now, notice that the muscle is in the thoracic region, but you look at the insertion of this muscle. The insertion of the muscle is into the upper limb, pectoralis major. So it is at the pectoral region, and major in Greek means large. So there's major, that is a large muscle, and the opposite of it is going to be minor. That's the thing with anatomy. You can relate things through mirror images. Okay, when there is radius, there will be ulnar, and there's medial, there will be lateral. Where there's superior, there will be inferior. Okay, so just have that in mind. So back to the first muscle. So here is the pectoralis major. So let's hide this guy here to see where exactly the pectoralis major is inserted. So you notice that it is inserted here. Okay, at the lateral lip of the intertubercular sulcus. So when we deal with a muscle, I'm going to hide it so that we move forward systematically and gradually. So let's hide it. Then here is the minor. So the minor is below the major. There is the pectoralis minor. Okay, so it's minor because it's smaller in size, and the previous one is major because it is larger in size. And look at where the minor is inserted, right on the edge of the humerus. So the next muscle we'll consider is subclavius muscle. Okay, that's the right subclavius muscle. Subclavius means that the muscle lies sub, below, clavius, clavicle. So the muscle lies below the clavicle, and there is the clavicle. So the muscle below the clavicle is subclavius muscle. Okay, so this is the subclavius muscle. Next muscle is the serratus anterior. Okay, the serratus anterior, and it's on the lateral aspect of the rib. Okay, serratus means something that is serrated, finger-like. The muscle is serrated and it is anterior. So when there is serratus anterior, there's definitely going to be serratus posterior, but that is not related to the upper extremities. So those are the 4 muscles in the thoracoappendicular region. At every point in this lesson, I'm going to be using mnemonics for us to remember the structures that we're learning. P major, okay, pectoralis major, the minor as well, okay, pectoralis minor, then the subclavius muscle, as well as the serratus anterior. Now the mnemonics for this is: please make student study. Pectoralis major, please make minor. Okay, pectoralis minor. Student, that is subclavius muscle. Study, that's serratus anterior. Please make student study. All right, so let's leave that region and we move to the next region. The next region that we will be considering is the posterior group of muscles, okay, in the thoracoappendicular region. And this group of muscles are the trapezius muscle, latissimus dorsi muscle, levator scapulae muscle, rhomboid major, and rhomboid minor. So we'll start with the trapezius muscle, the latissimus dorsi muscle, that is large muscle that is in the dorsal aspect of the body, that is posterior. Next is levator scapula. That's a muscle that elevates the scapula. Okay, it allows you to shrug your shoulder. Next is rhomboid major muscle, as well as the rhomboid minor muscle. So the rhomboid major is larger than the rhomboid minor. The shape of that muscle is rhomboid, so that's the reason why it is called rhomboid major and minor. So trapezius, latissimus dorsi, levator scapula, rhomboid major and minor. So the mnemonics for this is teachers love learning really much. So that's the mnemonics. And teachers, that's trapezius muscle. Love, that is latissimus dorsi. Learning, levator, levator scapulae. Really, that's rhomboid much major, and then rhomboid minor. All right, so we are through with the muscles in the thoracoappendicular region. So we move to the posterior aspect of the upper limb, and that is the scapulohumeral regions. So we are dealing with the muscles in the scapulohumeral regions, and that involves the scapula and the humerus. For the scapulohumeral region, the muscles that we will be considering is the one around the head of the humerus, and that is deltoid and teres major. These are the muscles that are the powerful movers of the humerus. Okay, deltoid is abduction, while teres major is adduction. So here is the deltoid muscle. The reason why it is called deltoid muscle is because it is delta shape. So it's because this muscle has a delta shape. Okay, like this. That's the reason why it is called deltoid muscle. The origin is from the clavicle here, clavicle, the acromial end of the scapula, the clavicle and acromial end of the scapula, and inserts into the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. Okay, it inserts into the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. Then the next muscle is the teres major. So we will be able to find the teres major posteriorly and look at it here. This is the teres major. Okay, here is the minor, which is smaller than it, but this is the teres major. Now, the reason for it being called teres major is because teres in Greek means straight. So muscles that are straight, okay, in morphology are called teres. Now, major is the one that is bigger, and the minor is the one that is smaller. So that's teres major and teres minor. So this is the teres major. Look at the origin at the inferior angle of the scapula. And insertion, it's at the lateral lip of the intersubacular sulcus. So it's at the lateral lip, teres major. So that is DT, deltoid and teres major. They are the powerful movers of the humerus. Deltoid abducts it and teres major pulls it back. Deltoid abducts it away towards this direction, while the teres major adducts the body towards this direction. And then we move to the muscles that rotate the head of the humerus, and these muscles are called the rotator cuff muscles. There is a mnemonics for learning it, and that is the sits muscle. So the first muscle is supraspinatus. Why is it called supraspinatus? It is because there is a fossa that is above the spine of the scapula right here. So this is the spine of the scapula, and then there's a space on top of this spine. This space is called supraspinous space, and then that gives the muscle that inserts into it the name supraspinatus, or muscle located there, supraspinatus. Look at where it is inserted into the head of the humerus. The next muscle to consider after supraspinatus is the one below it, which is infraspinatus, and that is because there's a space here, okay, and the name of this space is called infraspinous fossa. So the muscle that is found in this space is called infraspinatus muscle, that is below the spine of the scapula. And look at where it is inserted, still in the head of the humerus, and specifically on the greater tubercle, okay, posterior aspect of the greater tubercle. That's where it is inserted into. Now the next muscle to consider is right here, which is the teres minor. Remember that we have dealt with the teres major, which is part of thoracoappendicular muscles. Now here is the minor, which is teres minor. It's a straight muscle, that's teres and minor. So this teres minor is also involved in the movement of the head of the humerus. Okay, so that is involved in lateral rotation of the head of the humerus. Look at where it's originating from the lateral border of the scapula, and then it inserts into the greater tubercle. When this muscle is pulled towards this direction, then it causes the head of the humerus to rotate laterally. Okay, and the last muscle after the teres major is subscapularis muscle, and it's right here. So subscapularis, that is the muscle that is inserted into the space of the scapula, is called subscapularis muscle. Here is the muscle for a better view. So you see that it moves from within this fossa of the scapula into the humeral head. Now this subscapularis is inserted into the medial lip of the medial lip. So this medial lip, this lateral lip. Okay, within the intertubercular sulcus is this tendon that is for the biceps brachii. so it is inserted on the medial limb. So with that, we are done with the rotator cuff muscles, and the acronym is SITS. S-I-T-S-S. So the first S is for supraspinatus, the I is for infraspinatus, the T is for teres minor, and the second S is for subscapularis muscle. For the arm, the Greek word for arm is called brachium. Remember the word brachial plexus, that is nerve that supply the upper limb, but the arm is specifically called the brachium. There are muscles in the anterior aspect of the brachium. So the first muscle we'll consider is the biceps brachii. That is for flexing the elbow. Based on the name biceps, bi means two and ceps means heads. So this is a muscle with two heads. Okay, so this is the first head, then this is the second head, short head, and the second head, long head. Now you notice that the muscle is inserted straight down into the radial tuberosity from this sulcus here, which is called intertubercular sulcus. Okay, this is greater tubercle, this is lesser tubercle, and the space between them is intertubercular sulcus. We move to the next muscle and look at this muscle here called coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis. So in anatomy, if there's a complex word, then you have to piece those words separately or apart and then understand their meaning individually. So coraco, it's from the coracoid process. Look at it, coracoid process of the scapula. Okay, the beak-like forward extension of the bone of the scapula, that is coracoid, and this is brachialis, that is inserting into the bone of the arm, which is the humerus. Coracobrachialis, coracoid process, and the brachial. The last muscle in the anterior arm is the brachialis muscle. Brachialis muscle. So you see that all those muscles are brachial because we are dealing with the arm, brachial. Okay, so the brachialis muscle originates from the middle shaft of the radius and inserts into the radial tuberosity. We are done with the muscles in the anterior aspect of the brachial or arm. So here is the mnemonics to remember the three muscles. The mnemonics is B, that is biceps brachii, B, that is brachialis, C, coracobrachialis. Okay, so biceps brachii, brachialis muscle, and coracobrachialis. So that's the mnemonics for learning the muscles in the anterior aspect of the arm. Now the muscles in the anterior arm are supplied by the musculocutaneous nerve. Okay, musculocutaneous nerve. So we move from the anterior aspect of the arm to the posterior muscles. Now the posterior muscles have just two muscles, and this is the triceps, which is allowing for extension. The anterior muscle group is for flexion, that is the biceps, brachii, and the rest. But the triceps is muscle that is involved in extension of the elbow. It's called triceps because it has three heads. Tri means three. So the triceps have three heads. This is the long head of triceps. Okay, and then the other two shorter head are named lateral head, and the one inside medial head. So this is the long head. Now this is lateral head. Okay, and the one inside is the medial head. That's the reason why it is called triceps. The triceps gets its origin from the humeral head. The medial lateral head arose from the posterior and the upper part of the humeral bone. Okay, and they insert into the elbow. That is called the olecranon process. This is found in the ulnar bone. Now the next muscle in the posterior aspect of the arm is the anconeus muscle. Anconeus. The reason why it's called anconeus is because of its Alright, so the mnemonics for the posterior compartment is TA.